Imagine you're in Gaza, okay? These Israeli soldiers come in and like kill your family or whatever, but they leave the woman alive, and the woman like just hops on an Israeli dude's dick and starts fucking him as the rest of the family is in the corner dead. Like that's some pretty dark shit, right? We can use free will and say that, oh, she chose to do that, right? Therefore, she is bad. But more likely, if free will doesn't exist, which I don't think it does, all that means is that all right, so the feminists actually weren't as bad. I mean, that's just kind of ad hominem attacks. It's kind of really difficult to even respond to them, right? Whoa, the incels got a spokesperson. Okay, cool. So yeah, I just said like, well, what's wrong with trying to understand their perspective? You know, like again, this is just classic cruelty expressing itself right here. They think that I'm sure this person, as soon as they saw, oh, I got 4 likes, they probably felt really good about themselves. They probably felt very powerful, right? Well, that's why people inflict cruelty. They inflict cruelty on other people that they feel that they have permission from the herd to critique, and then the herd claps along. In social media, it's through the form of likes. Oh, good job. You're doing well. You express your cruelty towards somebody who deserves it. Oh, such a good person. Oh, and then there's like, oh yes, I am a good person. Oh, and then they all just jerk each other off with their false sense of virtuousness. It's just a giant circle jerk of sanctimoniousness. Um, so anyway, my response is, what's wrong with trying to understand their perspective? That's the entire point. You want to try to understand every single perspective, especially the ones that you disagree with. And this is why Nietzsche also says that the life's deepest questions can be answered through psychology. And I think that's one good way. It really helps me to be a bit more empathetic toward people and less critical, because when you see a contemptible person or hear a contemptible person, you automatically think that they were brought up on the same values as you. And you automatically think, usually you're judging them based off of a value system that you don't even question, that was given to you from a young age, right? They might not even be the value system that you personally hold based off of your personal life experiences. And that's why it's so important, again, to ask questions, to pay attention. If that's the number one thing that I could teach you from this channel, from these great minds like Nietzsche, like Heidegger, which this is something they both agreed with, is introspection is everything, or not introspection, paying attention is everything. Paying attention, question things, right? Ask dangerous questions that you're afraid to ask because of the consequences, right? You need to have the courage to do that. And then actually just really just pay attention, because so many people are just on autopilot all the time, you know? And so if you take life from that perspective, I think what you'll often find is that, well, the evidence is pretty clear that human beings are much more similar than we are different. Even the most contemptible among us compared to the most admirable among us, which is, Nietzsche encapsulates that idea in his phrase "human all too human," which he actually had a book called "Human All Too Human," but that's something that he uses throughout his writings a lot. He even says himself that the lowest type of man and Napoleon have more in common than Napoleon does to the Ubermensch, right? So even a great man like Napoleon is still human, all too human. And so if you look at it from that standpoint, it's easier to sort of see, okay, well, if somebody is doing something really stupid and contemptible, is it more likely that it's something psychological that's happening? Instead of like shaming them and being like, oh, well, they chose to be a bad person. They chose to be an evil person because of this free will that they have. It's also why I think free will is an evil idea. Evil idea. It's a bad idea. I think it's a fabrication of a slave morality driven society in order to uh keep people feeling guilty doing certain things, and by keeping people guilty for doing certain things that would normally be against the what's beneficial to society, you keep everybody in their chains, you keep everybody in line, right? So free will allows slave morality to exist. So yeah. So anyway, if we just assume free will doesn't exist, then we can look to psychology more to explain why somebody does what they do. If we look at other animals in the animal kingdom, we look at a lion, um, Okay, so here's a funny example. Lions, when one lion pride invades another lion pride, they kill all of the men, they kill all of the cubs, they leave the female lions alive, and the female lions, in order to not get killed, automatically then fuck the male lions of the tribe that of the pride that just killed all their family and friends. Okay. So that sounds pretty cruel and sadistic, right? Like imagine, oh God, to put it in human standpoints. Okay, imagine some, oh God, imagine like a robber, or you're okay. Well, let's do something modern events. Okay, imagine you're in Gaza. Okay, these Israeli soldiers come in and like kill your family or whatever, but they leave the woman alive, and the woman like just hops on an Israeli dude's dick and starts fucking him as the rest of the family is in the corner dead. Like that's some pretty dark shit, right? However, with us, when I say that, that sounds way darker than what the Lions did, right? Why does it sound way darker? Because for us, we feel that um, we're not allowed to do that, that we shouldn't do that. That's naughty because we're human. Humans are better than that, right? And yes, I do believe that humans are better than that. Um, However, we're still both animals, right? Like we're still both uh we have a common lions and I have us have a common ancestor in which that behavior makes sense. And so if we can forgive the lions for doing something like that, I'm not saying that we can because they're just like, oh, there's animals, they just can't help themselves. That's just how they are. Why do we feel guilty or why do we feel shame or scorn? Well, a scorn in this context is better. Why do we feel scorn and contempt for a woman doing something like that? Right? Sort of that whole war bride thing that existed in antiquity. But especially and we would forgive that back in antiquity too. It's like, oh, well, those people are stupid back then, whatever. But we're smart and enlightened now. So if that happens now, that's unacceptable. You know? It's because of free will that we can shame that person for doing that. When in reality, if somebody if that is a natural thing, which that's a big claim, but let's just say that it is for sake of argument. If that is a natural thing for a woman to do, if something gets she gets taken over, or whatever, and her survival instincts kick in, then why is it that uh, why is it that it's bad now and not as bad back then? It's because we can use free will and say that, oh, she chose to do that, right? Therefore, she is bad. But more likely, if free will doesn't exist, which I don't think it does, all that means is that she has a bunch of values that were instilled in her from a young age that told her to not do those things, right? That is a evil, contemptible thing to do, so she wouldn't do it. She would rather die than do that to survive, right? Anyhow, so like I said, there's utility in because I think we can all agree that it'd be better for her to not fuck the soldier after the soldier killed her whole family, right? Um, so there is utility in that slave morality type of thinking, but in a master morality type of way, I think it probably would have been acceptable for her to do what she might come more naturally to her. This is very bad advice. Well, that's your opinion. Okay.